मंजू की जय। राधा दामोदर श्याम सुंदर गोकुल नंदरार मंजू की जय। कृष्ण बलराम महाराज की जय। निखिल पृष्ठ ओम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्तिवेदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। ओम विष्णुपाद परिव्राज कचर्य स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्तिवेदांत मधुसूदन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्य पृष्ठ ओम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्य पृष्ठ ओम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्ति जीवन जनार्दन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्य पृष्ठ ओम विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। पृष्ठ विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्ति वेदांत त्रिविक्रम गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। जो पृष्ठ विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज की जय। पृष्ठ विष्णुपाद श्रीमद गुरुगोविंद महाराज की जय। जो पृष्ठ विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्ति वैभवपुरी गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। पृष्ठ विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्ति कमल गोविंद गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। पृष्ठ विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्ति प्रमोदपुरी गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। जो पृष्ठ विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्ति राक्षसीधर गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। पृष्ठ विष्णुपाद स्तोत्र सत्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। परम भागवत शिल गुरु किशोर दास जी महाराज की जय। सप्तम गोस्वामी सच्चिदानंद शिल भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। वैष्णव सार्वभौम शिव जगन्नाथ दास जी महाराज की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास रघुनाथ गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। स्वरूप दामोदर रामानंद श्री गौर परिषद वृंद की जय। नमाचार्य शिव हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवस्ति श्री गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। नवदीप मांडव की जय। व्रज मांडव की जय। क्षेत्र मांडव की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम व्रत की जय। तदीय पालन करी भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री राधा मदन मोहन जी की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समग्र गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। पञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। आनन्दलीलमय विग्रहाय मवधीवचिवसुन्दराय तस्मै महाप्रेमरसप्रदाय चैतन्यचन्द्राय नमो नमस्ते। नित्यानंद नमस्तुभ्यं प्रेमानंद प्रदायिने कलो कल्मषनाशाय जन्मपतये नमः। जन्मलंबितभुजो कनकवदातो संकीर्तनाय कपितरो कमलायताक्षो विश्वम्भरो द्विजवरो जुगधर्मपालो वन्दे जगत्प्रियकरो करुणावतारो। गोवर्धनधरं वन्दे गोपालं गोपरूपिणं गोकुलोत्सव ईशानं गोविन्दं गोपिकाप्रियं वन्दे वन्दरमन्दारं वृन्दावना विनोदितं वृन्दावने कलानाथं पुरुषोत्तममद्भुतम्। कृष्णवर्णं त्विषा कृष्णं सङ्गपङ्गस्त्रपर्शदं यज्ञाय सङ्कीर्तनप्रयार्यजन्ति स्वमेधसा ध्येयं सदा परिभवग्नमभीष्टदोहं तीर्थस्पदं शिवविरिञ्चन तं शरण्यं भृत्यार्तिहं प्रणतपालभवद्दिपोतं वन्दे महापुरुषते चरणारविन्दम्। त्यक्त्वा सुदुस्त्यजसुरेप्सितराजलक्ष्मीं धर्मिष्ठार्यवचसा यदगादरण्यं मया मृगं दयितमीप्सितमन्वदावत् वन्दे महापुरुषते चरणारविन्दम्। हेलधुनीतकदया विशदया प्रन्मीलदन्मोदय शम्यच्छस्त्रविवादया रसदया चित्तार्पितन्मादय शश्वद्भक्तिविनोदया समदया माधुर्यमर्यादया श्रीचैतन्यदया निधेतवदया भूयादमन्दोदया। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे। First of all, my limited Dandavat pranams into the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev, Nityala Prashtam, Vishnupada Stotra Satya Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Dear Shiksha Gurudevas, Om Vishnupada Stotra Satya Srimad Bhaktivedanta Madhusudan Goswami Maharaj, Shrimati Krishna Priyata Purani, Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Shrimad Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Goswami Maharaj, Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Stotra Satya Shrimad Bhakti Kamal Govinda Goswami Maharaj, all Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Varga, all dear Vaishnavas in Chandrika Kunja, all devotees online, and those who are watching us in recording, Dandavat Pranams. So very, very happy and simultaneously sad day, because today's last program here in Chandrika Kunj. Very, very grateful to you, Asim Prabhu and Yamuna Didi. But we still have to hear the glories of Purushottam tonight. And also there will be 2 more classes in London. So yesterday we heard Gaura-tattva, the continuation. We heard about Sachinandan Gaura Hari. We heard about different aspects of his personality and specifically the reasons for his descent. And today the time has come for Gaura-lila finally. He came Antar Krishna Bahir Gaura simultaneously. Krishna inside and Gaura outside means Gauri Srimati Radhika. Radha Bhava Duty Suvalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam. He was fully covered with Srimati Radhika's Bhava and Kanti, her mood and her color. Remember his 3 unfulfilled desires. Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrishava Naeva Swadena Adbhuta Madhurima Kidrishava Madhya Saukyam Chasimanoodabhavatam Kidrisham Vitilo Bhattad Bhavade Samajani Sachigarbha Sindhu Harindu. So he, Krishna, when he returned to Goloka Vrindavan, he had 3 unfulfilled desires. What is the depth of Srimati Radhika's love? Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrishava Naeva. Mahima, greatness. Yeah. And what is the Adbhuta Madhurima, means inconceivable, unbelievable sweetness of his own qualities, my own qualities, Krishna was thinking, which relishes her and only her in her heart. Even Lalita and Vishaka are not able to taste what Srimati Radhika can taste. So, remember we compared to sugar doll. Sugar doll is not able to taste her own sweetness. Not able, his own. Not able. So a relisher should do that. So a relisher, that relisher should tell how sweet it is, should experience. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna in the utmost greed, level of utmost greed. So Krishna is extremely greedy to taste his own sweetness. So that is the essence of rasa. When the hero, Krishna, the bhakta, the enjoyer, wants to taste his own sweetness. He can relish his own sweetness, that's true, but only with the help of his devotees. So this is the platform of rasa. So many devotees, each of them relishing Krishna's sweetness in so many rasas. But specifically Srimati Radhika is the highest of all. She is Bhakti Devi. That's why her rasa is completely incomparable. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to relish and has come to demonstrate also. He was speaking through Raya Ramananda. Raya Ramananda was speaking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was listening. He spoke to Srila Rupa Goswami by giving just 1 drop, and he spoke to Sri Sanatana Goswami more extensively. So then Rupa and Sanatana, they wrote incomparable scriptures about the rasa, or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ujjvala Nilamani, and specifically Raya Ramananda. He was speaking. Mahaprabhu was even blocking his mouth one time, blocked his mouth. And then Raya Ramananda sang the song of his own composition. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was relishing. So himself, Krishna, took shelter of Vishaka, Raya Ramananda, very close friend of Radhika's. And he was able to hear the sweetness and the greatness of his Priyatama's, his beloved's love. So that is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Sokyam Chasimanoodabhavatam Kidrisham Vetilobat. What happiness she feels when she is experiencing the sweetness of his own incomparable qualities. Her and only her, no one else in the 3 worlds can reach that level of Madanakya Mahabhava, highest level of prema. So that is Krishna, who shaved his head, and he came as a beggar of prema to Srimati Radhika. And first of all, he covered himself with her hue and with her mood. That is Krishna. So Swarupa Damodara Goswami is the incarnation of Lalita, and Ramananda, incarnation of Vishaka. So they were the closest. Remember, we were mentioning them amongst Parishads. They are the two main Parishads, 3.5. Shiki Mahiti and Madhavi. But Swarupa Damodara and Ramananda were the closest to Krishna, to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Swarupa Damodara Goswami, by the way, also a sannyasi. This color of the rising sun of Radhika's Anubhava was of Radhika's love for Krishna. Radhika's Anuraga. Radhika's incomparable love. So he was also wearing this color, Swarupa Damodara. When he arrived in Navadvip, he offered prostrated obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he uttered this shlok. Hela dhunita kedaya vishadaya pranmiladanmodaya shamyachastra vivadaya rasadaya chittarpitan madaya shashvat bhakti vinodaya samadaya madhurya maryadaya Shri Chaitanya daya nidetavadaya bhuya damandodaya. Shri Swarupa Damodara Goswami was keeping a diary that was called Kadachas. So Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author, had never seen Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Physically, had never seen. But he has seen through hearing. Because he was in a very close association with Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. And Raghunath Das Goswami was Swarupera Raghu. He was the Raghu, Raghunath Das, who was belonging to Swarup Damodara Goswami. So when he came to Jagannath Puri, then immediately Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu handed him over to Sri Swarup Damodara Goswami, his secretary, and that's basically Lalita. Sakya, so Rati Manjari, Raghunath Das Goswami was under the supervision of Lalita Devi directly. So that's why Raghunath Das Goswami was waiting eagerly when Sri Swarup Damodara Goswami returns from Gambhira in the morning, the sacred room of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, where he was experiencing those ecstasies. He was waiting for the nectar. Oh, please share that nectar with me. So Swarup Damodara Goswami was telling him these kadachas, was telling him these shloks, verses from his diary. So Srila Raghunath Das Goswami was immediately memorizing them and then telling Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So he was telling them one after another, and then Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami received that in his heart, in codes, and then he started his Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita from those kadachas. The 14 key verses, and many others also. And then he extended that to the measurement of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the great ocean of Gaudiya Siddhanta and Gaudiya Rasa, Gaura Rasa. So, Hela Dunita Kedaya, you can see, Daya means mercy. Repeated so many times in this verse. Hela Dunita Kedaya Vishadaya Pranmiladan Modaya Shamyachastra Vivadaya Rasadaya Chittarpitan Madaya Shashvat Bhakti Vinodaya Samadaya Madhurya Maryadaya Shri Chaitanya Daya Nidetavadaya Bhuya Damandodaya. Hela Dhunita Kedaya. So all the living entities are immersed in Kedaya, in lamentation. So Hela, very easily, it can drive away Udhunita, drive away. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy can easily drive away all the sufferings of the jivas, all the sufferings of the souls in this world. And Vishadaya can purify everything. Kela Dunita Kedaya Vishadaya Pranmila Dhamodaya. So the transcendental bliss, pranmila, amodaya, transcendental bliss can be awakened, pranmila, very, very easily. Transcendental bliss. So transcendental bliss is within us, but without us. But by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, it can be awakened. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sends us bona fide Guru, his close associate. So our fortune at once arises. We have to undergo the path of sadhana. We have to hold the mercy. If you have something very valuable, for example, charanamrita, in a little pot, but let's imagine it's filled with nectar to the very brim. So you have to be very, very careful not to spill a drop. And if you're very, very careless, you might, trip. It can be dropped. So we have to be very careful. So every sadhaka must become a gardener. There is no question to do or not to do, to follow or not to follow. Nowadays, many devotees are having this test, great test, being away from Vrindavan. We have to stay close, or rather not close, in Vrindavan in our mind. So Purusottama-vrata is the time. Just hold and not spill. Don't blame the circumstances. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj was saying the what's that? Is what's the word? Not surroundings, but the other word. What's around you? Environment is always favorable. He was saying, environment is always favorable. Don't blame the environment. Oh, this is not Vrindavan. I cannot wake up. I cannot do my sadhan bhajan. It's too boring to chant. Don't try to deceive yourself. So just hold Mahaprabhu's mercy. Hold Mahaprabhu's mercy. So then the mercy will awaken your transcendental fortune, transcendental bliss, on your anmodaya. Bliss is within us. And when you have your homework, then be diligent not to drop even one drop aside. Always, always carry. Always continue. So, pranmila danmodaya, shamya chastra vivadaya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so harmonious. Remember, we're hearing, he's in the center of the acharyas of 4 sampradayas. Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, Nimbaditya. He's in the center because his conception is most harmonious. He unites all conceptions. Some acharyas are stressing Dvaita, some Advaita more, some Dvaita mixed. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has all. He has churned all. He has united all. He is the absolute center. Absolute center. The absolute harmony. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj was saying absolute harmony. So in Shastra, in the scriptures, there are so many statements, and many of them seem to be contradictory. Many, many cases. So even one acharya can have a different opinion than the other acharya on a certain point. No problem, because there are many facets of the same crystal. Can be seen from many, many sides. And Shri Guru is all accommodating. Acharya is all accommodating. But the initial Guru is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He accommodates all conceptions and sees their unity in possibly diversity. That's all right. There are so many diverse opinions. But they are all parts of one unity, one absolute harmony. So simultaneous difference and distinction. Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. That is the most harmonious view of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His Siddhanta. So Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. This is the triple highest authority for us. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes as Guru and Sadhu, and they see the Shastra and they give us the Shastra, the Shastric opinion. So both these three have to be accepted. Sometimes, maybe, that there are seeming contradiction, not sometimes, often. But there's a prescription, two should win against one in this, how to say, not battle, but let's say comparison. You know? So Guru may say something which seemingly is not found in the writings of previous acharyas. This is all right, because it's confirmed in Shastra. So two against one. Right? Or sadhu, a certain sadhu can say something. Shri Guru will say, oh, this is correct, but there's some specification, etc., which is proved by Shastra here and here. So you can two against one. Or Shastra says something. You know, one acharya says one thing, the Guru says different thing. Why? Guru, by churning the Shastras, he will prove, and quoting some other acharyas, he will also. There are many different cases like this. But the fact is, what is said here, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the center of all the Shastric evidences. He's in the center of all so-called critical angles of Siddhanta. So he is there, and his teachings, they involve everything. And our acharyas and our gurus, they have churned that, and they know the perfect conclusions. Shamya Chastra Vivadaya Rasadaya. So he has given Rasadaya. He has described all the rasas. He has put that into the hearts of Sri Rupa and Sanatana, and Srila Rupa Goswami in Shashwamet Ghat, Dashashwamet Ghat in Prayag for 10 days was listening. And even more, Srila Sanatana Goswami was listening in Varanasi. So later they described all rasa in their books. Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. They described the gradations of rasa. They described the mellows, different tastes of rasa. So Rasadaya Chitarpitan Madaya. Yes, so in the heart there will be unmada, there will be jubilation. There will be so much joy. Shashvat Bhakti Vinodaya Samadaya. He's always stimulating Vinodaya, stimulating pure bhakti in the heart. Always stimulating. The waves of pure bhakti are rising, they're continuing. So if a devotee is undergoing some trouble, that's completely okay, because Guru and Sadhu and Shastra are by our side, they're always with us. Devotees were asking our Gurudev, oh, I'm alone in my area, I cannot see the devotees. Gurudev said, cover yourself with books on all sides and become a library. Now it's so easy since you have one reader and everything is there. So just press the buttons required, and then so many things also you can hear, you can think of, you can watch Mahabharata, etc., Ramayana, etc., especially during Purusottama, so there's no problem about it. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was asking rhetorically, what is the difficulty? Oh, Prabhupada, it's impossible. Impossible is a word from the vocabulary of fools. Like this. He was making devotees confident. There's no problem whatsoever in life. There's no problem. So, Samadaya, full of ecstasy. Madhurya Maryadaya. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has exposed the limits of Madhurya. Rasa. Srila Rupa Goswami wrote one book specifically dedicated to Madhurya, the sweet pastimes of Radha and Krishna, Ujjvala Nilamani. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has opened the treasure chest of rasa, and he has opened those layers which were unknown for so many years. There were 4 critical periods in history of Vaishnavism, Gaudiya Vaishnavism. 4. The first one before Mahaprabhu's advent. The second one after the disappearance of the 6 Goswamis. Third one after disappearance of the 3 Prabhus, Prabhutraya, Srinivas Shyamananda, Narottam Das Thakur. And after the disappearance of Baladev Vidyabhushan Prabhu, Vishwanath Chakravarti and Baladev Vidyabhushan, 150 years of great trouble, when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur came, and there's a term, Bhaktivinoda Dhara. Dhara means flow. Bhaktivinoda Dhara, so the flow of conception, the Ganga of conception of Mahaprabhu's Sampradaya, Gaudiya Sampradaya, came into the hands of Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and the Bhaktivinoda Dhara, the great flow of Bhaktivinoda's conception, was very powerfully overflowing all the world through Gaudiya Mata, through Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada and his followers. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, our Gurudev, devotees like this. So limitless also, geographically, let's say, all over the world. Nobody has seen dancing wild elephants, white elephants before, and nobody has heard of such level of exalted Siddhanta, such philosophy of prema. Nobody has heard before. Sri Madhavendra Puri was the first sprout, then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Padandel, Sri Bhaktivinoda, and all the acharyas of Gaudiya Sampradaya. So, Sri Chaitanya Prabhu, Dayanidhe, Bhuya Daman Daya. So, let, by his mercy, the ocean of his conceptions be awakened, the ocean of good fortune be awakened within our hearts. Very wonderful prayer. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after he took sannyas, he went to Jagannath Puri. In Jagannath Puri, he spent 18 years. 6 years he was he was a sannyasi for the second half of his life. 24 years he was a grihastha with long hair, nimai. He was married, but then he took sannyas. For 24 years he was a sannyasi. 48 years he spent in this world. So for 6 years he was traveling in South India. 6 plus 12, 18 years he spent in Jagannath Puri. For 6 years he was engaging in Harinam Sankirtan in Jagannath Puri. He was going to visit devotees. They were treating him prasad, giving him prasad, and he was participating in Ratha Yatra, etc. He was more open. But for the 12 last years, solely he was in Gambhira, in his sacred room, in Kashi Mishra's house. Gambhira is a very sacred place for the Vaishnavas. So today we'll just touch a little bit the great moods of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the moods of separation from Krishna. And that is most exalted narration, very sacred narration. It's very rarely discussed, but we have the right, I think. The month of Purusottama, at the feet of their lordships, Shri Radha Madan Mohan, bestowing bhakti, we have the right to hear something about the most confidential pastimes of separation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna vicheda vibhrantya manasa vapushadhiya yatyad vyadhata gaurangas tadlesha katyate dhuna. Now I shall describe a very small portion of the activities performed by Mahaprabhu within his mind, intelligence and body when he was bewildered by strong feelings of separation from Krishna. Kaviraj Goswami is writing. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emotion of transcendental madness in separation from Krishna is very deep and mysterious. Even though one is very advanced and learned, he cannot understand. Not possible. But we have the right to hear. When we hear, then we pray, and gradually experience will come. So Shri Swarup Damodara and Rai Ramananda were recording all transcendental pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. in their notebooks. So Swarup Damodara's notebooks were mentioned, they were called Kadacha. So Mahaprabhu was away from the eyes of common people. Only Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda were able to stay next to him. Therefore, Kaviraj Goswami is saying they had a very unique possibility to take some notes, because all the other commentators were far away. Vrindavan Das Thakur and others, they were far away. So therefore, Swarup Damodara and Raya Ramananda were in a very privileged position. So then he tells how, we already discussed how Swarup Damodar Goswami passed those sacred verses to Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. So thus they reached Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt separation from Krishna, his condition exactly corresponded to that of the gopis of Vrindavan after Krishna's departure from Mathura. Lamentation of Radharani when Uddhava visited Vrindavan gradually became a feature of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental madness. So when Uddhava came, he brought a message from Krishna. First he talked to Nanda Baba Yashoda. He met some of the other Vrijbasis, but then he saw the maidens of Braj, who were scattered here and there, some of them sitting, some of them standing, looking towards Mathura, their hair disarrayed. And finally he saw one gopi who was lying on the bed of flowers, practically breathless. Next to, she was close to leaving her body. That was Srimati Radha Thakurani. So then Uddhava saw the love of the gopis. He felt himself a tiny insect at the foothill of that great golden mountain of Gopi Prema. So he said, Vande Nande Vrajastrinam Padarena Apishna Shaha Sat Harikathot Gitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam. All glories to the unprecedented love of the maidens of Braj, which is completely incomparable. Padaren, I'm falling at their feet. Padaren Abhishna Shaha Harikathot Gitam Bhuvanatrayam. Certainly, their pastimes and their moods to purify all the world. That's the highest katha. So, therefore, Uddhava is called Haridas, great Haridas, great devotee of Hari. And according to Srila Sanatana Goswami's classification in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he takes the highest position of Prematura Bhakta. Higher than Uddhava, only the gopis, because he appreciated gopis' love. His Swarupa didn't allow him to experience Gopi Prema, but kalpa after kalpa, he takes birth at the at Uddhava Kunda as one grass each kalpa. So you remember the place on the way to Radha Kunda, next to Radha Kunda, practically a few kilometers, there's Uddhava Kunda. And Uddhava Kyari in Nandagam, that's the place where Uddhava saw the gopis. So that Radhika who was seen by Uddhava in Uddhava Kyari is called Viyogini Radha. The Radha immersed in separation. And that Radha who is experiencing new meeting with Krishna at Kurukshetra is called Samyogini. So while in Jagannath Puri, during Rath Yatra, Mahaprabhu was experiencing sometimes Viyogini, the moods, sometimes Viyogini, sometimes Samyogini Radha. So Srimati Radhika is always in Vrindavan and Varshana, in those places in Vraj. But her expansion, she's always, Krishna is always in Vrindavan also. Vrindavanam parityaja padam ekam nagacchati, But his expansion leaves for Mathura and Dwarka, so he becomes Mathuresh and Dwarkadish, and he always thinks about the gopis. That's why, like Lord Jagannath with his big, big eyes, he is immersed in ecstasy. We're looking towards Vrindavan during Ratha Yatra, and he's going towards Vrindavan. Krishna is returning to Vrindavan. That's the mood of the Gaudiyas. Great, great festival. Krishna is returning to Vrindavan. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emotions exactly corresponded to those of Radhika when she met Uddhava. The Lord always conceived of himself in her position and somewhat though thought that he was Srimati Radharani herself. That is the state of transcendental madness. One day while he was resting, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dreamed he saw Krishna performing his rasa dance. Mahaprabhu saw Krishna standing with his beautiful body curved in 3 places, holding his flute to his lips. Wearing yellow garments and garlands of forest flowers, he was enchanting, even to Cupid. The gopis were dancing in a circle, and in the middle of that circle, Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, danced with Radharani. Seeing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed with the transcendental mellow of the rasa dance, and he thought, now I am with Krishna in Vrindavan. Govinda was Mahaprabhu's servant. Rai Ramananda, Swarupa Damodar also, but Govinda was like menial, so he was always at the feet of the Lord. So when Govinda saw that the Lord had not yet risen, he awakened him. Understanding that he had only been dreaming, the Lord was somewhat unhappy. Remember what speaking yesterday about how Swarupa Damodara, by uttering some mantras, was returning Mahaprabhu to external consciousness, and after coming back he was rebuking Swarupa Damodara, Ramananda. Why have you brought me back? I was with Krishna and the gopis. So Mahaprabhu performed his customary daily duties as usual, and then he went to Lord Jagannath in the temple. As he visited Jagannath, he viewed the Lord from behind the Garuda column, Garuda Stamba. There's a column which is meters away from Lord Jagannath. Hundreds and thousands of people were eager to receive darshan. So they were in front of the deity. And one Orisan lady, a woman, she was not able to see Jagannath because she was not so tall. And the crowd was preventing her from seeing the Lord. So she climbed the column of Garuda Stamba. And for her convenience, she put her foot on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's shoulder. A simple lady. So immediately Govinda started rebuking her, So she got down from her position hastily. Oh, what have I done? Although she did it, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had chastised him for this. He said to Govinda, "Oh Adivasya, you uncivilized man, do not forbid this woman to climb the Garuda Stamba. Let Lord Jagannath see her too, and let her see Lord Jagannath to her satisfaction." So Mahaprabhu was so humble. She was really willing to allow that lady, sannyasi, to put her foot on his shoulder. So he rebuked Govinda for that. When the woman came to his senses, she quickly climbed back down to the ground. Seeing Mahaprabhu, immediately begged forgiveness at his lotus feet. But Mahaprabhu said, "Oh, Lord Jagannath has not bestowed so much eagerness upon me how he bestowed to this lady. She has fully absorbed her body, mind, and life in Lord Jagannath. Therefore, she was unaware that she was putting her foot on my shoulder. She didn't do that purposefully, right? She didn't. Like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, when he heard Devadasi, Devadasis, they're singers and dancers, young celibate girls at the temple of Lord Jagannath. They always sing and dance for him. So one evening, Devadasi was singing from Gita Govinda, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the singing, and immediately he rushed through the bushes, and he was not seeing who was singing, a man, a lady, who could not understand. He was about to embrace the singer But Govinda, same Govinda, grasped him and said, shouted strongly into his ear, Stri, Stri means lady, lady. Oh, thank you so much, Mahaprabhu said, you saved my life. Said so, that was function of Govinda. So he did good in both situations. But in this situation, Mahaprabhu so humbly said, see, this lady was so much absorbed that he didn't see whether a man or a woman. He couldn't realize that it was someone's shoulder even. So, alas, how fortunate this woman is. I pray at her feet that she favor me with the great eagerness to see Lord Jagannath. See, certainly he's so humble. Who will be eager to see Lord Jagannath as much as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? No one, because that's Radharani's mood. But anyway, he noticed that lady. Just previously, Mahaprabhu had been seeing Lord Jagannath as Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, in person. Becoming fully absorbed in that vision, Mahaprabhu had assumed the mood of the gopis so much that, so that everywhere he looked, he saw Krishna standing with his flute to his lips. Everywhere he was. While he was awake or asleep, always Radha and Krishna and the gopis. So then Mahaprabhu's external consciousness returned and he saw the original deity forms of Lord Jagannath, Subhadra and Balaram. So whenever Mahaprabhu was looking at Jagannath, he was never seeing Dwarakadish Krishna with his brother Balaram and sister Subhadra on his sides. He was always seeing the flute player, Govinda, from Vrindavan, and surrounded by the Gopinath, surrounded by the gopis. So when he saw the deities, Mahaprabhu thought he was seeing Krishna in Kurukshetra. He wondered, oh, have I come to Kurukshetra? Where is Vrindavan? See, different vision. Jagannath Puri is actually Dwaraka. That's the same line. Corresponds to Dwaraka completely. But the garden of Gundicha, at which Madhavya Gurudev is situated on the other side, that is Vrindavan. So your Gurudev was seeing Vrindavan every time, looking at Gundicha. So Jagannath is looking towards Gundicha and he's seeing Vrindavan. But then Mahaprabhu returned to external vision, it says here. So he saw Krishna in Kurukshetra. Have I come to Kurukshetra? So that's Samyogini Radha again. See, it was Viyogini, then it shifted to Samyogini. Radhika, after long separation, again seeing Krishna in Kurukshetra.
So can you explain those two?
So three manifestations of Radhika. The first one is Vrishabhanu Nandini, the daughter of King Vrishabhanu. She's always in Vrindavan, never makes a step out, and that's actually so. And Viyogini is the same Radha who is also in Vrindavan, but she feels acute separation. So she is lying down on a bed of flowers in Uddhavakyari at Nandagaon. It is said that the soil of Nandagaon was totally wet. It became mud because of the tears. And the gopis were lying down, standing there, sitting. And Samyogini is Srimati Radhika, who is meeting Krishna at Kurukshetra. After some time, a long time actually, Krishna was in Dwaraka. The meeting took place at the holy place of Kurukshetra, and the eclipse. So Brijabasis came on the bullock carts from Vrindavan, and the residents of Dwaraka from Dwaraka on the chariots, so they met. And although Radhika saw Krishna again, and the gopis saw him again, they were eager to see that same new Cupid, pressing the flute to his feet, playing on the fifth note in the moonlit nights of Chaitra month on the bank of Yamuna, where the Malati and Kadamba trees were flourishing. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was meditating on that And he uttered a shlok from a mundane poetry, actually, Sahitya Darpana, while he was dancing at Ratha Yatra, saying about that. So that was the mood of Samyogini Radha. Actually, when Mahaprabhu came to meet Raya Ramananda at Godavari, that was also Samyogini Radha, mostly Samyogini Radha's mood. So Radhika was happy but simultaneously unhappy because she could see Krishna without peacock feather, in a helmet, as a prince, surrounded by commanders, chief commander, etc. So many horses, elephants, chariots, shouts, where it hurts, Dwaraka has army and military array and everything. So he was no longer the flute player with peacock feather and pitambara and Vaijayantimala, gallant, everything. So Lord Gauranga grew very much agitated, like a person who had just lost recently acquired jewel, and he became very morose and returned home. He sat down on the ground and began to mark with his fingernails. He was blinded by tears, which flowed from his eyes like the Ganga. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Pailuri Vrindavananath Puna Harahalun Kemora Nikena Krishna Kahan Muyan. I found Krishna, the Lord of Vrindavan, but I have lost him again. Who has taken my Krishna? Where has he gone? Where have I come? When Mahaprabhu dreamed of the rasa dance, he was fully absorbed in transcendental bliss. But when his dream broke, he thought he had lost the precious jewel. Thus Mahaprabhu would chant and dance, always absorbed in the bliss of transcendental madness. He carried out the necessities of the body, such as eating and bathing, merely out of habit. Didn't feel much taste for that. At night, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would reveal to Swarup Damodara and Raya Ramananda the ecstatic feelings of his mind. Mahaprabhu was saying, at first my mind somehow achieved the treasure of Krishna, but it again lost him. Therefore it gave up my body and home because of lamentation and accepted the religious principles of a Kapalika yogi. Then my mind went to Vrindavan with its disciples, my senses. Mind became Kapalika yogi. Kapalika yogi travels with a human skull, It's like a type of fakir mystic. So he travels here and there. So his mind went to Vrindavan like this and took his disciples, the five senses. Metaphorical. So Mahaprabhu was feeling he had lost the acquired gem, and he grasped the necks of Raya Ramananda and Swarup Damodar Goswami and cried, Alas, where is my Lord Hari? Where is Hari? Finally he became restless and lost all patience. Shuna bandana bandava Krishna Ramadhuri Yara lobe more mana Chari loka veda dharma Yogi hana haila bhikari. This Tripada is continuing. When the narration of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes very high, then it switches to Tripada. This meter, special for very exalted thoughts. My dear friends, Mahaprabhu said, please hear of Krishna's sweetness. Because of a great desire for that sweetness, my mind has given up all social and Vedic religious principles and has taken to the profession of begging exactly like a mystic in the mood of Radhika. Mahaprabhu continues singing, Krishna Lila Mandala Shuddha Shankha Kundala Gadiyache Shuka Karikara Sei Kundala Kane Pari Krishna Laudhali Dhari Asha Jhuli Kandhe Rayupana. The ring of Krishna's Rasa-lila, manufactured by Shukadev Goswami, the most auspicious craftsman is as pure as an earring made from a conch shell. The yogi of my mind is wearing that earring upon his ear. From a ground he has carved out of the bowl of my aspirations, and he has taken the bag of my expectations on his shoulder. The yogi of my mind wears the thorn quilt of anxiety, and his dirty body, which is covered with dust and ashes, his only words are, "Alas, Krishna." He wears 12 bangles of distress on his wrist and a turban of greed on his head. Because he has not eaten anything, he's very thin. So those yogis wear turbans and sometimes rings and bracelets, and sometimes they are dirty because not taking bath for a long time, very austere. So his mind was like this, Mahaprabhu was feeling. The great yogi of my mind will always study the poetry and descriptions of Lord Krishna's Vrindavana pastimes. In Bhagavatam and other scriptures, great saintly yogis like Vyasadeva and Shukadev have described Krishna as a super soul beyond all material contamination. The mystic yogi of my mind has assumed the name Mahabaula, the great mystic, great wandering mystic, and made disciples by my 10 senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses and 5 working senses. Thus my mind has gone to Vrindavan, leaving aside the home of my body and the great treasure of material enjoyment. In Vrindavan, my mind goes from door to door begging alms with all of his disciples, the senses. He begs from both the moving and the inert inhabitants, the citizens, the trees and the creepers. In this way, he lives on fruits, roots, and leaves. The gopis of Vrajabhumi always taste the nectar of Krishna's attributes, his beauty, his sweetness, his aroma, the sound of his flute, and the touch of his body. My mind's 5 disciples, the senses of perception, gather the remnants of the nectar from the gopis and bring them to the yogi of my mind. The senses maintain their lives by eating those remnants. The senses are bringing to the mind is relishing and giving the rest to the senses. There is a solitary garden where Krishna enjoys his pastimes, and in one corner of the pavilion and the garden, the yogi of my mind, along with his disciples, practices mystic yoga. Wanting to see Krishna directly, this yogi remains awake throughout the night, meditating on Krishna, who is the super soul, uncontaminated by the 3 modes of nature. When my mind lost the association of Krishna and could not longer see him, he became depressed and took up mystic yoga. In the void of separation from Krishna, he experienced 10 transcendental transformations. Agitated by these transformations, my mind fled, leaving my body, his place of residence empty. Thus, I am completely in trance. So, these same symptoms Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is tasting, which were tasted by the gopis when they felt separation. So their mind was traveling towards Mathura to see Krishna. So in that same way, Mahaprabhu was traveling to Vrindavan on the, on the path of his mind compared to mystic yogi. So what are those 10 transformations? Anxiety, wakefulness, Ujjvala Nilamani says. Anxiety, wakefulness, mental agitation, thinness, uncleanliness, talking like a madman, disease, madness, illusion, and death. Very, very deep. So ordinarily these things in society are considered inauspicious, but in the life of great, great devotees, best of them is Radhika, most auspicious, transcendental. So day and night Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed in the experiencing of those 10 ecstatic conditions of Srimati Radharani. Whenever such symptoms arose, his mind became unsteady. So The impersonalist yogis, they become very steady. But when one becomes a devotee, one loses one's steadiness, becomes very, very steady, experiencing the moods of Radhika like this. After speaking in this way, Mahaprabhu fell silent. Then Rai Ramananda Rai began to recite various verses. Rai Ramananda and Swarupa Damodar were the great masters of balancing Mahaprabhu's moods. They knew which verse to quote at what time. That's a great, great, great science. Swarupa Damodar was able to, Rai Ramananda also. Ramananda Rai cited verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, and Swarupa Damodara sang of Krishna's pastimes. In this way, they brought Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to external consciousness. They were always afraid that he would leave, so they were bringing him back. After half the night passed in this way, Rai Ramananda Swarupa Damodara made Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lie down on his bed in the inner room. Then Rai Ramananda returned home. Swarupa Damodara Goswami and Govinda lay down in front of the door of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's room, so that he won't step out. Mahaprabhu remained awake throughout the entire night, chanting Hare Krishna mantra very loudly. So, Krishna Nama Sankirtan. After some time, Swarup Damodar could not longer hear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's chanting. When he entered the room, he found the 3 doors locked, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was gone. He left. So the devotees were very anxious when they saw that the Lord was not in the room. They wondered about searching him for the warning lamp. So, after searching for some time, they came to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was lying in the corner of the northern side of Simhadwara gate. But his body was not like usual at all. So they saw his conditions. Everyone, headed by Swarup Damodara, were very, very anxious. Mahaprabhu was lying unconscious, and his body was elongated to 5 or 6 cubits. So there was no breath from his nostrils. Each of his arms and legs had become 3 cubits long. Only skin connected the separated joints. The Lord's body temperature, indicating life, was very low. All the joints in his arms, legs, neck, and waist were separated with at least 6 inches. It appeared that only skin covered his elongated joints. Seeing the Lord's condition, all the devotees were very unhappy. They almost died when they saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his mouth full of saliva and foam and his eyes turned upward. When they saw this, Swarup Damodara and the other devotees began to chant the holy name of Krishna very loudly into Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ear. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. They were trying to bring him back to senses. Then, when the holy name of Krishna entered the heart of Mahaprabhu, he suddenly arose with a loud shout, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. As soon as the Lord returned to his external consciousness, also his limbs were back, so he could arise. His joints contracted and his entire body returned to normal. We were mentioning on another occasion, he was like a tortoise, with his body limbs, shrunk into his body. So Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has described all those pastimes in Gauranga Stava Kalpa Vriksha, because he heard that from Sri Swarup Damodara Goswami. So then Mahaprabhu was very much astonished to find himself in front of Simhadwara, the lion gate of Jagannath temple. He asked Swarup Damodara, where I am, what I'm doing here. Swarup Damodara said, my dear Lord, please get up. Let us go to your place. There I shall tell you everything that had happened. All the devotees surrounding Mahaprabhu took him back to his back to his residence. And then they all described what had happened. Then, upon description, seeing the description, hearing the description, Mahaprabhu was very much astonished. He said, I don't remember any of these things. All I can remember that I saw my Krishna, but only for an instant. He appeared before me, and then, like lightning, immediately disappeared. So just then, everybody heard the blowing of the conch shell of the Jagannath temple. Mahaprabhu immediately took his bath and went to see Lord Jagannath. So, in our last program, day after tomorrow in London, we'll hear some more sweet pastimes of Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. That's the highest manifestation of Supreme Personality of God possible. And in Jagannath Puri, he's immersed in deep, deep separation. So today I was very happy. These pastimes we don't usually discuss, but sometimes in intimate companies in the holy month we can discuss them. So again, great gratitude to the residents and sevaks of Sri Chandrika Kunj in the kunjas in the groves of East Sussex for accepting me during this path of Purushottam. Very, very happy. So luckily London is not locked yet, thanks God, for quarantine. So there will be 2 programs. Tomorrow's program will be more like personal and it will not be broadcast, but day after tomorrow in Sundarananda Prabhu's at Sundarananda Prabhu's in London, Camden Town. We'll see. And those who are not able to come, you can watch the broadcast. The program will start 5 p.m. different time, and the broadcast will start 6 p.m. day after tomorrow. Shri Chaitanya Charitamritam ki jai, Shri Purusottama-vrata ki jai, Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Varga ki jai, Shri Paramarajidam Guru Pad Padma ki jai, Nitai Guru Premanande Hari Hari Bom. Thank you so much. Any questions, most welcome. Today's class was a bit shorter, but also we had some confidential things. Okay. Please have darshan. Shri Radha Madan Mohan. Go.
So I have a question, but it's more about the sampradaya, not to do with what we just saw.
Okay.
A bit sort of on the, but basically, you said that for 150 years.
Voice up.
You said, for 150 years that the sampradaya was in some problem.
Critical period.
Yeah. So when Bhaktivinoda Thakur came, was it just that people were not reading the literatures that were there and they were not catching the conception that was already there? And so for this reason, or was it that they was just doing their own thing without referring to, Goswami's teachings and stuff like that?
Yeah.
That it became so messy, yeah?
There were many Apasampradayas. When Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur came, he counted there were about 13 of them, main ones. Aul, Baul, Kartabhaja, Jati Gosai, Gauranga Nagari. And therefore he couldn't stay with his son Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Jagannath Puri because they were singing bogus mantras. And he took a long time till he found one copy of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, one bona fide copy. It took a long time really, searching. And also the reputation of Gaudiya Vaishnavas went very much low because the unscrupulous Babajis, they were engaged in some licentious activities, engaging in some rough Sanskritification instead of bhajan, living with others' wives. I mean, some cases of living with widows, etc. So there were many types of Babajis. Also, Sakyabekis wearing the clothes of gopis like Lalita and Vishaka. Many, many, many. And the practice of genuine Vaishnavas was not commonly known, and therefore Sampradaya was not popular, let's say. So many deviations were there. Certainly there were pure Vaishnavas, but there were a few, just a few. Srila Bhaktivinoda's guru was Vipin Bihari Goswami, but his Shiksha Guru and bona fide representative of Guru Parampara was Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. Yeah. So therefore, Sampradaya was in great crisis. But Bhaktivinoda is compared to Bhagirath, who has brought Ganga from the celestial regions to this earth, so that he could save his 60,000 ancestors. Yeah. So in that same way, he brought Mandakini Ganga. In that same way, Srila Bhaktivinoda brought the flow of Mahaprabhu's conception. That crisis of 150 years after the disappearance of Sri Baladev, Vidyabhushan was the deepest, was the worst.
So were all these Upasampradayas, were they connected via initiation to the Baladev Vidyabhushan?
Yes, they were going after. Srila Bhaktivinoda was in the line of Sri Janava Thakurani, actually, according to his association, initiation. So they were continuing. But the general opinion in society about Gaudiya Vaishnavas was very bad.
So it wasn't that there was a break in Sampradaya, it was that just the people that were initiating just took it to another place?
No, there was proper succession, but they were mostly Bhajananandis. They were not preaching most of the time. And it is said that Gaudiya Vaishnavas were then engaged in singing at funeral processions. Often, they were just engaged there and paid there, and there was no movement. And then the movement started. Srila Bhaktivinoda was the architect, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was the builder. So like this. Okay, so anything else? Purushottam? Some of you, some of you were seeing last time this year. This time, so if you want anything, any subject, you can ask. Use this opportunity. All right. Thanks very much, everyone. The Sevaks at Chandrika Kunj Groombridge, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna. So now we'll sing one song. It's a very, very deep song. It's called Manare Kathana Gaura Katha. Manare Kahana Gaura Katha. Srila Narahari Sarkar Thakur singing, O mind, just speak about Gaura. Gaura's name is the abode of nectar and the embodiment of and bestower of divine love. In sleep there is Gaura, in dreams there is Gaura. Gaura is the star of my eyes. In life there is Gaura, in death there is Gaura. Gaura is a most precious necklace. Keeping Gaura Hari inside my heart, I will sit in a secluded place, and according to my heart's desire, I will keep my eyes fixed on the on his moon-like form. Without Gaura I cannot live. I have made Gaura the essence of my existence. May my life be spent chanting the name of Gaura. I do not desire anything else. Gaura's movement, Gaura's appearance, Gaura's smiling face, Gaura's love, and Gaura's form all penetrate my heart. Gaura is my dharma. Gaura is the object of my karma. And Gaura is the essence of the Vedas. I surrender my life at Gaura's lotus feet. Gaura will take me across the ocean of material existence. Nara Haridas begs for shelter at the lotus feet of the servant of the person in whose heart the sound of Gaura and the treasure of Gaura has manifested. Okay. Manare Kahana go Manare Kahana Gaura Manare together. Kahana Gaura Gaure Rana Mami Arada Gaure Rana Mami Arada Piriti Murati Data Kahana Gaura Gaure Rana Mami Arada Piriti Murati Data Shayane Gaura Swapane Gaura Gauranayane Radhara Shayane Gaura Swapane Gaura Gauranayane Radhara Jivane Gaura Marane Gaura Jivane Gaura Marane Gaura Gaura Jivane Gaura Marane Gaura Gaura Kahana Gaura Hiyaramachare Gauranga Rakiya Virale Vasiyara Hiyaramachare Gauranga Rakiya Virale Vasiyara Manera Sadete Serupa Chandere Manera Sadete Serupa Chandere Nayane Nayana Manera Sadete Serupa Chandere Nayane Nayana Kahana Gaura Gaura Vihane Nabanchi Parane Gaura Kare Chisara Gaura Vihane Nabanchi Parane Gaura Kare Chisara Gaura Boliya Jauka Jivana Gaura Jauka Jivana Kichuna Jadi Boya Gaura Boliya Yoga Jivani Kichunachari Gora Mare Gaura Kamana, Gaura Gatana, Gaura Mukera Hasi. Gaura Kamana, Gaura Gatana, Gaura Mukera Hasi. Gaura Piriti, Gaura Murati, Gaura Piriti, Gaura Murati, Gaura Piriti, Gaura Murati, Gaura Karama, Gaura Vedirasa, Gaura Karama, Gaura Karama, Gaura Vedirasa, Gaura Charane, Parama Sampino, Gaura Charane, Parama Sampino, Gaura Kori Vena, Gaura Charani, Parana Sampino, Gaura Kori Vena, Gaura Shabada, Gaura Sampada, Jahara Hiya Yaja. Gaura Shabada, Gaura Sampada, Jahara Hiya Yaja. Naraharidas, Sarada Sardas, Naraharidas, Sarada Sardas, Charane Charane Naraharidas, Sarada Sardas, Charane Charane Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Purusottama-vrata ki jai, Jai Gaura-lila. Hare Krishna. So see you day after tomorrow in the broadcast from London, which will start at 6 p.m. GMT. Hare Krishna.